3:15 in the morning. Anthony Zhang's phone vibrates on the nightstand, cutting through the thick silence of Los Angeles like a blade. On the other end of the line, a trembling voice whispers words that would make history. "Magic, you need to see this. You need to see it now." To understand how we arrived at this confession that stopped the basketball world, we need to go back 24 hours, when everything was still normal. Have you ever wondered what happens when a legend refuses to acknowledge another legend? When pride becomes greater than truth? Magic Johnson, 5-time NBA champion, the man who redefined the point guard position, carried a weight that few could perceive. It was possible to feel it in the heavy atmosphere of his Beverly Hills office, that invisible tension that accompanies men accustomed to always being first. The sound of trophies gently clinking on the mahogany shelf echoed like whispers from the past. Each golden piece there represented not just victories, but an identity built brick by brick. Magic Johnson wasn't just a former player. He was the point guard, the standard, the absolute reference. But something was changing, and Magic could feel it in the air. In that office where great deals were born and fortunes decided, there was a framed photo that Anthony Zhang, his pastor and confidant for more than 15 years, always noticed during his visits. It was young Magic, in the Lakers' golden uniform, arms raised in victory. The eyes in the photo seemed to carry a silent question. How long will you deny the obvious? God writes straight with crooked lines, Anthony used to say during his counseling sessions. Sometimes, Magic, the most crooked line is that of our own pride. It was impossible not to feel that something was bubbling beneath the apparently calm surface of Magic Johnson's life. Recent interviews had become minefields. Journalists like Sarah Mitchell from ESPN always asked the same question in either different ways. Magic, when will you acknowledge that Steph Curry revolutionized basketball? The answer was always the same polite evasion. A political smile. Some words about respecting all players of the new generation. But never, ever, the direct recognition everyone expected to hear. What's most striking is how denial can become a prison. Magic had built walls so high around his legacy that he could no longer see beyond them. How many times in life do we become prisoners of our own greatness? Naturally, this leads us to understand why that Tuesday in October would be different. Sarah Mitchell had called 3 times that morning. Her voice carried an urgency that made Magic's stomach contract. Magic, I need to talk to you about something that's going viral. It's about Steph Curry. It's about faith. Faith. The word echoed in the office like distant thunder. Magic Johnson, the man who prayed before every game of his career, who raised his children in church, who always credited his victories to God, suddenly felt a chill down his spine. How is it possible that someone so connected to faith could be blind to something so obvious? God writes straight with crooked lines, he murmured to himself, repeating Anthony's words. But this time, the words sounded different. They carried a new weight, a revelation that hadn't yet fully reached consciousness. The video arrived via WhatsApp at 2 in the afternoon. Jason Martinez, ESPN cinematographer, had captured something no one expected to see. The 43-second file would change everything. Steph Curry, alone in the locker room before the most important game of the season, kneeling on the cold floor of Oracle Arena. Hands clasped, eyes closed, lips moving in silent prayer. But it wasn't just any prayer. Magic recognized every word, every pause, every inflection. It was exactly the same prayer he used to say before decisive games in the 80s. Magic's heart raced like it hadn't since his retirement. The sound of his own labored breathing filled the empty office. How was it possible? How did Steph Curry know that specific prayer, those intimate words that Magic had never shared publicly? Lord, make me worthy of this opportunity. Use my hands to show that basketball can be art. Use my life to inspire others to find their light. Word for word, pause for pause, as if it were the same spirit praying through two different generations. Suddenly, everything changed when Magic realized something that made him question everything he believed about legacies, about greatness, about God's purpose in his life. This wasn't just a video of a player praying. It was a mirror that reflected a truth Magic had refused to see for years. God writes straight with crooked lines. And maybe, just maybe, the most crooked line of all was Magic's resistance to acknowledge that God had chosen Steph Curry to continue writing the story he himself had begun. The phone rang again. This time, Magic answered on the first ring. Magic, Anthony Zhang's voice carried a gentleness that cut straight to the heart. Did you see the video? I did. And then? Silence. The kind of silence that precedes earthquakes. Then, I think I need a long conversation with God. But what happened next would change everything forever. The night arrived charged with a different energy. Magic Johnson couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Steph Curry kneeling in that locker room, pronouncing words that seemed to echo directly from his own soul. 3 in the morning, the same time as the call that would change everything. Magic got up, walked to his office, and did something he hadn't done in years. Searched for Steph Curry on Google. Have you ever wondered how many times we judge someone without really knowing their story? Magic had spent more than a decade purposely avoiding learning more about Curry. It was an unconscious protection, a way to keep his own pedestal untouchable. But now, sitting in the darkness of his office, with only the blue light from the computer illuminating his face, Magic began a journey that would change his perspective forever. The first video he found left him speechless. It was a 2016 interview, still in the early days of Curry's explosion as a global star. The reporter asked about his basketball influences. The answer cut Magic like a sharp blade. Magic Johnson was sent by God to show that basketball can be art, Curry said, eyes shining with a sincerity that crossed through the screen. Every no-look pass, every impossible assist. It wasn't just technique, it was divine. I pray every day to be worthy of continuing that tradition of beauty in the game. Magic's heart beat so hard that the sound echoed in the office silence. How was it possible that he had never paid attention to these words? How had he been so blind to something so clear? God writes straight with crooked lines, he murmured again. But, this time, the words carried a deeper understanding. Maybe his resistance to acknowledging Curry was exactly the crooked line God needed to create something greater. It was impossible not to feel that something was reorganizing inside his chest, like pieces of a puzzle finally finding their correct places. Magic continued searching. Video after video, interview after interview. With each discovery, his breathing became more labored. Curry talking about humility. Curry crediting victories to God. Curry saying that great players plant trees in whose shade others will sit. They were exactly the same values Magic had always preached. The same faith. The same humility. How had he missed this? Naturally, this leads us to understand why that dawn would become a watershed moment in Magic Johnson's life. At 5 in the morning, Diana Thompson came down to the kitchen and found her husband still glued to the computer. 25 years of marriage had taught her when not to ask questions. She simply served coffee and stayed there, in silence, offering presents. "Diana," Magic's voice came out hoarse, loaded with emotion. "I've been a fool." "Why, love?" "Curry. Steph Curry. He is—" Magic swallowed hard, fighting against decades of crystallized pride. "He is what I always wanted to be. Not just as a player. As a Christian. As a man." Diana placed her hand on her husband's shoulder. The warmth of emotion spread through the environment like invisible waves. "And what are you going to do with this discovery?" Magic didn't respond immediately. He was watching another video. Curry after a painful playoff defeat. Eyes red with tears, but still finding strength to thank God for the opportunity to play. Humility in defeat. Gratitude amid pain. "He's better than me," Magic whispered, the words escaping before he could censor them. "Not just in the game. As a person. As an example." What would you do if you discovered that someone you avoided acknowledging for years was, in fact, the improved version of everything you always tried to be? Diana sat beside her husband. "Magic, do you know what this means? That I need to swallow my pride? No," she smiled softly. "That God used you to inspire someone who would become even greater. It's not defeat. It's multiplication. It's true legacy." Diana's words echoed in Magic's chest like church bells. Multiplication. True legacy. God writes straight with crooked lines, and maybe the most crooked line was this: allowing Magic to resist for so long just to make the moment of recognition even more powerful. 7 in the morning. The phone rang. It was Sarah Mitchell. "Magic, did you see social media today?" "No. Why?" "Curry's prayer video went viral. But that's not all. Fans are making compilations comparing you to your faith, your values, your statements. Magic." Her voice trembled. "It's impossible to watch and not see that you're of the same essence." Magic closed his eyes. The universe was conspiring for him to see the obvious. "Sarah, I need to tell you something, but I can't speak over the phone. Can you come here?" "Of course. But Magic, you sound different. Your voice is different." "It's because I am different." While waiting for Sarah to arrive, Magic did one last search. He typed, "Steph Curry, favorite Bible verses." The first result left him frozen. Philippians 4:13. "I can do all things through Christ, who strengthens me." The same verse tattooed on Magic's arm for more than 20 years. The same verse that sustained him during the most difficult moments of his career. The same verse he whispered before every decisive free throw. How is it possible that two people, separated by an entire generation, carried the same spiritual anchor? Suddenly, Magic understood something that made him question everything he believed about coincidences and divine purposes. This wasn't chance. It was celestial architecture. God had used the same foundations to build two different stories, but connected by an invisible thread of purpose. Sarah arrived at 9 in the morning and found a Magic Johnson she had never seen before. There was peace in his eyes, but also a determination that made the air vibrate with expectation. "Sarah," Magic took a deep breath. "I need to do something I should have done a long time ago. I need to tell a truth that might change how the world sees Steph Curry, and how it sees me." "What truth, Magic?" "The truth about who really is the best point guard this sport has ever seen." The silence that followed weighed like 1,000 unspoken words. Sarah felt she was about to witness something historic, something that would make headlines stop spinning. Magic, are you sure? Sarah, he looked directly into her eyes. God writes straight, with crooked lines, and I finally understood what my crooked line was in this story. No one could imagine that moment would be the turning point. 2 weeks later, destiny placed Magic Johnson exactly where he needed to be, in the front row of Crypto.com arena, watching Warriors versus Lakers. But this time, he wasn't there as a fan. He was there as a man seeking redemption. The invitation had come unusually. Kevin O'Connor, Lakers director of operations, called personally, "Magic, I know it's strange, but Steph Curry specifically asked for you to be present today. He said he had something important to show you." Magic felt a chill run down his spine. How did Curry know about his journey of discovery over the past weeks? How did he know something had changed? The game started like any other, but have you ever noticed how some moments carry a different energy? As if the entire universe were paying attention? It was impossible not to feel that something transcendental was about to happen on that court. Third quarter. Curry received the ball on the perimeter, looked directly at Magic in the stands, and did something no one expected. Before the three-point shot that would change the game, he discreetly pointed to the sky and moved his lips in silent prayer. Magic recognized every movement. It was exactly the same ritual he used to do before decisive free throws in the 80s. Right hand on chest, look up, 3 deep breaths, and then perfect execution. The shot went in clean, but it wasn't the basket that left Magic breathless. It was realizing he was watching himself, only 20 years in the future, and with a precision he never dreamed of having. God writes straight with crooked lines, he whispered to himself. But this time, the words came accompanied by tears he couldn't control. What's most striking is how truth can hit us at the most unexpected moment. There, watching Curry play with the same faith, the same passion, the same reverence he always had for basketball, Magic finally understood. He wasn't seeing a rival. He was seeing a spiritual son. End of game. Warriors 118, Lakers 112. Curry had dominated with 42 points, but the numbers were irrelevant compared to what was about to happen. Magic received a message on his phone. Warriors locker room, back door, alone. SC. How many times in life do we receive invitations that we know will change everything? Magic walked through the arena corridors with heavy steps, like a man going to meet his destiny. The locker room was empty, except for Steph Curry, still in his sweaty uniform, sitting on a bench in the center of the room. The silence was deafening. Chadium, kind of silence that precedes revelations. Magic! Curry stood up, extending his hand. Thank you for coming. Steph, Magic hesitated. How to start a conversation that could redefine legacies? I know. Curry smiled with a serenity that completely disarmed Magic. I know about your journey over the past weeks. I know you saw the prayer video. I know something changed. How do you know? Curry walked to his locker and pulled out an old folder, worn by time. Because there are things I need to show you. Things I've kept for years, waiting for the right moment. It was possible to feel the thick tension in the air as Curry opened the folder. Inside, dozens of newspaper clippings, printed photos, interview transcripts. Everything about Magic Johnson. Since I was 12 years old, Curry began, voice choked. I studied every move of yours, every interview, every statement about faith. You weren't just my basketball idol, Magic. You were my example of how to be a man of God in sports. Magic felt his legs weaken. Steph, I'm not finished, Curry continued, removing a specific photo from the folder. It was young Magic kneeling in the locker room after the 1987 championship victory in prayer. This photo changed my life. My father cut it out of a magazine when I was a child. He said, "Son, when you grow up, be like this man. Play like him. Pray like him. Honor God like him." The tears Magic had held all night finally began to fall. How was it possible that his influence had traveled through decades to shape someone he himself refused to acknowledge? "But there's more," Curry said, rolling up his shirt sleeve. On his right arm, a small and discreet tattoo that Magic had never noticed in televised games. Philippians 4:13, the same verse you have. My God. Magic, Curry's voice trembled. I didn't become a great player despite you. I became a great player because of you. Every shot I make, every pass, every prayer before. Games! It's a continuation of what you started. The locker room spun around Magic. It was as if 30 years of pride and resistance crumbled in seconds. Suddenly, everything made sense. God's crooked line wasn't Magic denying Curry. It was Magic creating Curry without even knowing it. Steph, Magic finally managed to speak. I was an idiot. I spent years denying the obvious because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid that you were better than me. And you are. Curry shook his head, vigorously. No, Magic. I'm version 2.0 of something you created. I'm your evolved legacy. God writes straight with crooked lines, and you were the straight line that allowed me to exist. It was impossible not to notice that moment transcended basketball. Two generations meeting. Two faiths recognizing each other. Two stories completing themselves. Magic extended his arms and hugged Curry. In the silence of that locker room, 25 years of resistance transformed into acceptance, into recognition, into paternal love. Steph, Magic whispered in the young man's ear, you're not just better than me in basketball, you're better than me as a man, as a Christian, as an example. Magic? No, Magic pulled away, looking directly into Curry's eyes. The world needs to know that Steph Curry isn't just the best point guard of this generation. He's the best point guard of all generations. And more importantly, he's the best example of how to serve God through sports. Curry closed his eyes, tears running down his face. Are you sure? I am, and I'm going to say this publicly. I'm going to correct years of foolish pride. The two men knelt right there, on the cold locker room floor. Hands clasped, they prayed together. The same prayer both had been saying for decades. The prayer that connected their souls through time. Lord, make us worthy of this opportunity. Use our lives to show that basketball can be art. Use our story to inspire others to find their light. When they stood up, both knew something had changed forever. Not just between them, but in basketball history, in the history of faith in sports. Magic, Curry smiled through tears. God really does write straight with crooked lines. Yes, Magic responded, and our crooked line just became a straight line directly to people's hearts. And it was then that the truth finally came to light. 48 hours after the meeting that changed two lives, Magic Johnson did something no one, absolutely no one, expected. He personally called Tyler Brooks, young ESPN reporter known for his deep and respectful interviews. Tyler. Magic's voice carried a determination that made the air vibrate through the phone. I need you for something historic. Something that will change how the world sees Steph Curry and how it sees me. Tyler almost dropped his coffee. In 15 years of career, he had never received a direct call from Magic Johnson. Mr. Johnson, it would be an honor. What's this about? A confession. The most important confession of my life. Have you ever felt you were about to witness something that would be remembered forever? Tyler Brooks felt exactly that while preparing his equipment in Magic's Beverly Hills office. The environment carried a different energy, as if the walls themselves knew what story was about to be told. Magic entered the room wearing a simple shirt, no jewelry, no ostentation. Just a man ready to speak his truth. Anthony Jang was present, as he had always been in the most important moments of Magic's life. Diana Thompson held her husband's hand, offering the silent strength of 25 years of unconditional love. Tyler, Magic began, looking directly at the camera. What I'm going to say today might surprise many people. It might disappoint some fans, but it's the purest truth I've ever spoken in my life. It was impossible not to feel the growing tension in the air. Something monumental was about to happen. For years, I refused to publicly acknowledge what everyone already knew. I refused out of pride, out of fear, out of foolish vanity that blinded me to the most obvious truth in the world. Magic took a deep breath. The sound of his breathing echoed in the absolute silence of the room. Steph Curry isn't just a great player. Steph Curry is the best point guard this sport has ever seen. He's better than me. He's better than anyone who has ever worn a basketball jersey. The first bomb had been dropped, but Magic was just getting started. But that's not all, he continued, tears beginning to form in his eyes. Steph Curry is everything I always tried to be as a man of faith. He's the improved version of every value I tried to represent. He is what happens when God takes a dream and makes it reality. How is it possible that such simple words carry so much weight? Tyler Brooks knew he was recording something that would be reproduced millions of times, analyzed for decades, studied by future generations. God writes straight with crooked lines, Magic continued, the key phrase gaining its final and deepest meaning. And I finally understood what my crooked line was in this story. It wasn't to be the best forever. It was to be the first to inspire someone who would be even better. The revelation flowed like water dammed for years, finally finding its way to the sea. Steph Curry studied me when he was a child, copied my prayer, tattooed the same Bible verse, tried to honor my legacy in every possible way, and I was too proud to see that he wasn't trying to replace me. He was trying to honor me. Magic paused, looking at Anthony Jung, who nodded encouragingly. Last night, I prayed like I hadn't prayed in years. I asked God for forgiveness for my blindness, and I asked for wisdom to know what to do with this revelation. What's most striking is how moments of total honesty can transform not just those who speak, but everyone who listens. Tyler Brooks felt tears forming in his own eyes. The answer came clear as crystal. Magic continued. My role wasn't to be eternal. My role was to be a bridge. Bridge between classic basketball and modern basketball. Bridge between old school and new school. Bridge between what was and what can be. Naturally, this leads us to understand why that confession would become one of the most important statements in sports history. Steph Curry took everything I did and multiplied it by 1,000. He took creativity, and made it scientific. He took faith and made it a global example. He took love for the game and made it revolution. Magic stood up, walked to the window, looked at the blue Los Angeles sky. So today, before God, my family, basketball fans worldwide, I officially declare Steph Curry is the greatest point guard of all time. He's the best example of how to be a champion on and off the courts. He's what happens when talent meets faith, when skill meets humility. The room fell into absolute silence, the kind of silence that follows historic declarations. And, more than that, Magic returned to the camera, eyes shining with a peace Tyler Brooks had never seen. I'm proud to have been used by God to inspire someone so special. I'm not passing the torch. I'm celebrating that the torch reached even better hands than mine. Tyler Brooks turned off the camera, knowing he had witnessed something unique. A legend acknowledging another legend. A spiritual father blessing a spiritual son. One generation honoring the next. The interview aired on ESPN that same night. In 6 hours, it had accumulated 15 million views. In 24 hours, it was trending worldwide on Twitter. In a week, it had become one of the most shared sports statements in history. But the real impact came from an unexpected source. Steph Curry watched the interview at home, with family gathered. When Magic finished his statement, Curry cried like a child. Not from sadness, but from pure gratitude. Gratitude for having been seen, recognized, blessed by his childhood hero. The next morning, Curry posted a simple photo on his social networks. Him and Magic kneeling together in the locker room, in prayer. The caption said only, "God writes straight with crooked lines. Thank you for teaching me that legends recognize legends, and humility multiplies greatness." The photo received 30 million likes in 12 hours. But do you know what was the deepest impact of this whole story? It wasn't the numbers, it wasn't the headlines, it wasn't the worldwide repercussion. It was Magic Johnson sleeping peacefully for the first time in years. It was Steph Curry knowing his idol had become his friend. It was the entire world seeing that true greatness isn't afraid to acknowledge even greater greatness. 3 months later, Magic and Curry appeared together in a commercial for a shoe brand. The slogan was simple: "Legends inspire legends." But the real message was between the lines. When we set aside pride and embrace truth, everyone grows, everyone wins, everyone becomes greater. Anthony Zhang, observing everything from his church in Los Angeles, smiled during Sunday's sermon. "God writes straight with crooked lines," he told the faithful. Sometimes the most crooked line is our own pride. But when we let God straighten that line, miracles happen. And so, a story that began with resistance ended with recognition. A journey that began with separation ended with union, i.e., crooked line that transformed into the straightest line of all. The line that connects one generation to the next through love, respect, and faith. Magic Johnson finally admitted that Steph Curry is better. And by doing so, both became even greater than they already were. Because in the end, legends recognize legends, and God always writes straight with crooked lines.